Chris Claremont, welcome to Word Balloon. It's a pleasure to talk to you, man. I've been doing this for a while, and it's great to get the opportunity to talk to one of the Marvel legends. Truly,
I have to say, every time I hear that word, I am flabbergasted.
your body of work speaks for yourself, sir, and that's why they've made this Marvel-made Paragon collection, a brand new prestige product that is celebrating some of your best stuff. I mean, again, the amount of work you've done is too big for just one volume, and here's hoping that the response to this will make the necessity for a volume two, because I can think of a lot of things that aren't included that
Well,
I think are reflective of some of your great work.
oh, me too. But on the flip side of the coin, I'd much rather be creating more potentially great work at the same time. So there could be a volume 3 and 4 and 5.
Well, and in addition to that, you've got a new prequel story to Days of Future Past that you've done with Salvador Larroca. So I read it.
Yes.
They were kind enough. Marvel was kind enough to send it to me.
Hmm.
Uh, Great stuff, man. And again, Larroca is one of those great classic artists to get together with and everything and do this. Did you request Salvador? How did the collaboration happen with Salvador?
Well, these days I almost always request Salvador when I'm doing something because uh, we bonded at the turn of the century on my from my perspective, very brief run on the Fantastic Four, and then we hit the ground running in the aughts with Extreme. Oddly enough, one of which I'm looking at right now for a bit of reference.
That's
But
just,
no, I mean, I love. I mean, one of the hallmarks, unexpected hallmarks of my career, is the extraordinary quality of the artists it's been my privilege to work with. I mean, it's it it's amazing, and perhaps not the quality, quite the quality of of Steve Ditko or of Stan's, Jack and Steve, but pretty damn close from my perspective.
agreed.
And it's it's just marvelous, if not uncanny. And Salvador is one that has sort of become my go. Well, from the office's perspective, their go-to guy to team up with me. I mean, we've done a couple of short 10-page features over the last couple of years. Indeed, one's about to come out in this black and white and bloody red Wolverine anthology. So they said, would you like to do a Wolverine story with Salva? And I said, oh, yeah. And so for Wolverine, I came up with a 10-page story set between panels, I think 4 and 5 of the next to the last page of the Kitty Wolverine maxi series, 6-part series. And it's, from my perspective of Logan, it's ideal because it's all about making ramen.
That's
Because,
fantastic, man.
well, my view of Logan is anybody can do a hacking, a slashing story with him. And part of the go-to conversation that Frank Miller and I had on our way back from San Diego when I was pitching it to him was Frank saying, I just, I don't want, I find he finds Wolverine boring because all he knew of him is hacking and slashing, and it wasn't his style. And I said, well, it's not my style either. And it turned out we both were serious aficionados of Japanese history and culture, and it all bonded together in the miniseries. And this, in a sense, the 10-page story reaches back from that, and you learn a secret from Logan's past that ties into the fact that he's a lot older than everybody thinks and a lot more bonded to Japan than everybody realized. And there's a surprise in there. And in a way, the 20-pager that Salva and I did for this is in that same style as we discover how Rachel got from being a hound to being a prisoner, and then being the catalyst, the critical member of the team that creates the Days of Future Past scenario. I mean, without her, there's no way Kitty can go back to the present. Well, what was the present for us then? I mean, sorry, I'm branching off as usual. The interesting paradox between the comic story and the film is that the comic story was written in 1980, 79 or 80, where everybody's looking ahead. So the end of the story is, I think, Aurora or Scott saying to Charlie, how do we know we've saved the day? And Charlie's response is, we won't know till we get there. And by then it'll be too late. So we have to start working now. Whereas in the film, you are in 2017, looking back to 1960, I guess in the movie paradigm, it's 1980s. So when they fix the past, the future is set right. So you know you're moving from the ending to the beginning and back again.
I'm with
so
you.
The suspense sort of goes out the window, but it's a much more cinematically satisfying resolution.
Yeah.
Except that I immediately sat there looking at it and thinking, no, you've got it wrong. Here's what you need to do. And that way you can kick Avengers out of the ballpark.
No, I understand it. Go on.
Well, no. X-Men set the stage that evolved into Avengers. I figured we should at least finish the job on the same cinematic note by kicking their ass.
Well, maybe when we get that eventual Avengers X-Men film, that I'm sure is in the works.
There's a rumor floating around that the critical character in the next Captain Marvel is Rogue, and the essential sub-storyline is Rogue attacking Captain Marvel and absorbing her powers.
Wow.
For me, it makes for an interesting conundrum, because are they going to resolve it? If they do that, if they follow that scenario, will they resolve it in Captain Marvel 2, or will Carol be left powerless to be resolved in 3? Which, A, it's a comic book scenario, but B, that could be really kind of cool. And if I were really being a pain in the ass, I would throw in Jean Grey at that point, who comes up to Rogue and says, I want my fucking powers back. But that's a whole different scenario that is probably why no one from Marvel Studios has ever given me a call.
Now, again, you mentioned Wolverine. It's part of this collection, the Frank Miller series. And I'm glad to hear. I was interested in, prior to these conversations with Frank that led to the series, if you had thought about Wolverine having this background in Japan. I mean, he was this nomadic traveler, but how much do we know about his history in Japan prior to the series?
Well, if you notice throughout John's and my run, throughout Dave's and my run that led up to it, it's like the moment when he and Banshee and Jean are trapped on the space station, and he pops his claws, and everyone's staring at him like, holy cow, they're a part of you? You never told us. And his classic response is, you never asked. Because as far as he's concerned, he's an essentially private person. The subtext of that being, my life is none of your damn business.
Yes.
So he and Nightcrawler bond in a way because they're polar opposites. And the paradox for Logan is that Nightcrawler is very much what part of him wants to be. Whereas with Logan, part of him is very much what Kurt sees as everyone's cliche of him based on how he looks. So, boom, they're best friends. But the whole idea was to figure why he is as he is. So over the course of the series, Logan turns out, you speak Japanese? Yeah. You speak this, you do that? Yeah. It's like, why is this a surprise? Well, because you're Wolverine. Oh, you know, get your brains in order. I am not a cliche. And of course, what he ends up doing is, even though his love for Jean is a primal, it's a primal event. The minute he sees Mariko, something clicks. Because Jean is one side of him, the dark side, if you will, and Mariko is what he dreams of being, of becoming a creature, a person that she would fall for and be proud of.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And also, she's, by virtue of who she is and where she comes from, she is forbidden fruit, which is always what intrigues him. This goes back. Sorry, I'm wandering, but
I like all this. Continue.
This goes back to my vision of his origin, which Marvel felt was as inappropriate as Magneto becoming permanent headmaster of Xavier's school, which is a whole different 3-hour discussion. But the whole thing with her is she's the dream that he is constantly walking towards, whereas Jean is his soul. But what happened, where he comes from in my vision of him, is Sabretooth is his father. This brother thing from the movies is like, doesn't quite fly for me, if for no other reason than Hugh Jackman looks older than
Liev Schreiber.
And the fact that would make them both Jewish is a very interesting part of the paradigm, but we won't go into that.
I'm hip. Yeah.
But no, and so there's another character who runs the Princess Bar in Madripoor, Seraph, who is very short. Why? Because she's a fallen angel. She came down to Earth on a job for higher authority, and Sabretooth took one look at her and said, huh, never had one of those before. Let's see what happens. So they had their moment of whoop-de-doo and fell in love and walked away, and he left her with a souvenir. So 9 months later, Logan came along, and Seraph got notification from higher authority that, okay, we understand, but we are, after all, the forgiving end of the equation. So pass off the kid to someone else and come on home. And she said, no, this is my child. I'm going to raise him. And they said, that's a no-no. If you do that, you'll have to stay. And she said, okay. So wham, she stays on Earth. So in my vision, she's his mom. And that's why Sabretooth every year on Logan's birthday kills him. Because Sabretooth is really pissed off. Sure. You're my son. Why are you following your mother's footsteps and not me? I mean, yes, I'm going to kill you. Not that it means anything because you're going to get better. But I want you to kill me to prove that you are my son and you are the right, quote unquote, heir to my epitaph, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's easy because I'll get better too. This isn't about killing. It's about making the decision. And Logan, of course, being adolescent and a pain in the ass, says, screw you. I'm not going to do it. I will not do the, we will fight happily. I'll kick your ass happily, but I'm not going to take that last fatal step, this irreparable step. And
yeah.
So, no, I mean, again, this goes back to my vision of the Pantheon, which is substantially different from Marvel and definitely different from what's happened since. But for me, the core of all this comes back to the point that, are Jean and Scott true lovers? You betcha. There's a problem. What's that? Jean is Phoenix. Yeah. Phoenix is immortal. Yeah. So give Scott the benefit of the doubt and all the technology at Starfleet's command, maybe 150 years, maybe a little longer. But at some point, he will come to an end. Logan loves Mariko. Same rule. Give her 100, 150 years, it will come to an end. Wait long enough, all of their conceivable descendants will be gone. But Logan and Jean will continue to the last moment of the last day of creation, when they come back together again and the lights go out and everything is silent. And then, because it's my fantasy, I say 7 seconds because you want the James Bond theme in this somewhere. Boom. They start, they get together, they have shenanigans, and 7 seconds later, creation is reborn.
Interesting.
That's the cycle. Yeah. It's an ongoing, if you pardon the expression, infinite process.
Understood.
So it's all, Jean is the passion, Logan is the trigger. And that's the way it is. Which made perfect sense to me. Higher authority disagreed. But on the other hand, this is my private fantasy of the X world.
And it informs your subtext, which is great, I assume. Yeah. I mean, it's always in your head when you're writing these characters.
It's everything. It's growth and rebirth. It's always been about that. That's what was fun about working with Salva on this 20-pager, because I could take the original story, answer a couple of questions, but also give it a wider context, because we're looking at it in the 2 issues. Can you imagine Days of Future Past, 38 pages, and you're out?
I was reading.
That was so 1980s.
That's great, though, man. Honestly, I appreciate the fact that you came in, you told your story, and you got out. That was great.
But that was Stan's rule. Every issue, because the distribution was so pathetic, and we couldn't guarantee every month on the newsstand, Stan's rule was 1-issue stories. They're continued, the characters will evolve, stories might evolve, but each issue is a one-part story. You buy it, you spend your 15 cents, get your issue, you have fun, you come back to see what happens next. If it's really good, you can do 2, a 2-parter. If it is beyond comprehension, i.e. the coming of Galactus, you can go to 3. But the last 5 pages has to set up what happens next. In that case, Johnny Storm leaves for college.
We meet Wyatt Wingfoot. Absolutely, man. It's like,
no, but that's the whole.
I'm with you.
The whole idea is you get on, you say your piece, you get off. The thought of spending 6 months, 8 issues, 40 stories is, as a once in a decade, once in a century giggle, maybe. But the problem then, for me anyway, as a reader, the thing that I find nerve-wracking is what happens if you slip with an issue? What happens if somewhere along the line, one of the issues doesn't fly? How do you deal with it? What happens if one of the series, if the creators are not as deadline adherent as others, and things go out of sync? You can't. If you do it in 2 parts, you can swing for the bleachers. If you do it in 40 parts, everybody gets cautious. And then what do you do if you come in the middle? Yeah, we can go back and find the old issues, but to me, there are too many risks. And this is me being a 20th century writer as opposed to a 21st century writer, because they may find no, I'm better at this. I know how I can pull all this together. You know, it's just I'm not as committed, I guess, committedly adherent to finding out what happens next. I want the story, but I want it quickly because I want to see what happens next in terms of the evolution of their lives, not the chapters of this giant pantheon. I mean, people ask me what is my favorite story, and I said, well, 94 to 279, page 11, because it's all one story, but it's cut into a lot of different self different pieces that flow. They link, and in a way, the Nightcrawler story, sorry, the future past story, prelude to future past story, fits into that paradigm, because to me, this is the story of what was the first step down of Rachel's road down to getting to Days of Future Past. And we see where she came from. We see Ahab before he was evolved, let us
Understood.
say. We see the world ruled by the Sentinels. Well, the United States ruled by the Sentinels.
Mm-hmm.
We see characters that we thought were dead. Surprise, they're not. And some of them are favorites, of mine, certainly. And we see them trying to solve a problem. And we see my comment on a family relationship which has been evolved differently in the mainstream continuity than it is in my continuity. So this is mine, and my vision of who Rachel and her mom is totally different from everybody else's. So
that's fine.
I don't care. I'm being kind of discreet, or at least mindlessly, boringly discreet, because there are some surprises in there that I don't want to give away.
Understood. Absolutely. No, it's great, and it's a great reason to buy this collection. And again, people come for your vision, Chris. I mean, that's why I'm glad years ago they allowed you to continue your continuity of X-Men that you started with Jim Lee. And am I right? It was 3 issues, and then
out.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go on. No, please.
No, the only depressing thing was it did not sell at all.
Really?
Well, because again, for the current audience, there was no linkage.
I understand.
You know why? Yeah, okay, we can read old stories about where Claremont was going to go. And the funny thing for me was each further step I went down this road, things that I considered back then, but figured I'd never get away with, suddenly became, oh, I can get away with this. I can kill Tony Stark. I can kill Hank. Well, actually, yes, Jean can fall for Hank and then he gets killed. And it's like, she's suddenly thinking, I can't do this anymore. I can't fall for anybody. But then the evolution of it was taking me towards, okay, Aurora isn't the Aurora that we followed through Jim's issues, isn't the real thing. It's a clone because other things were going on. And then she overthrows T'Challa and kills everybody, the evil. And then Aurora ends up becoming the Queen of Wakanda. And then at the end, I mean, this goes back to my original idea, which was Remy was supposed to come into the X-Men because Remy is Mr. Sinister grown up.
Okay.
This is back in my original concept where Sinister is this like 10-year-old kid. Why? Because he has a 1,000 year plus lifespan, but he ages proportionately. So yeah, technically he's 170 years old, but he looks like a 10-year-old kid. And there's no way in hell you're going to get the Marauders to take orders from a kid. So he builds Sinister. But that's why Sinister looks the way he does. He's a villain designed by a 10-year-old kid. You know, I'm Nathaniel Essex from the 19th century and I look like a dingbat. It's like, no. Do none of you have a sense of humor? This is comic books are crying out loud. But Remy is, in my concept, was what Sinister is going to look like when he's grown up. So he's sent in to infiltrate the X-Men and to seduce them and destroy them from within. But then he discovers free will and decides, I'm going to bust loose of this. But his target is Kitty, not Rogue. So that was going to lead to a whole different evolution of stories. I mean, the thing that popped out of nowhere when I was writing this, that I was sort of in my notes from back in the day, was switching Nightcrawler and Rogue's powers, since they're both the children of Mystique. And then when I took one look at the design for Rogue looking like Nightcrawler, I thought, why the hell didn't I do this 40 years ago? She looks great. But then you've got Nightcrawler, who is the most physical and honorable of the team, suddenly trapped inside Rogue's power where he can't touch anyone. I thought, wow, he's totally screwed up.
Yeah, that's
so the next arc would have been Nightcrawler trying to deal with what's happened to him. And am I now truly cursed? Has God turned his back from me? And then Kitty and Gambit trying to figure out what to do in Wakanda, with lots of surprises that would probably get me run out of town on a rail more from every different side of the reader community.
I don't know, man. The
book got canceled.
Well, I understand, and I'm sorry that happened, because I do think well, yeah, of course, and it's a shame, because you're I'm stating the obvious. I mean, you were the X-Men writer. I mean, we were following you during all these great runs that are in the book. And I want to talk about some of the characters, like Phoenix. I mean, did you feel that, while you were setting up the Dark Phoenix saga, did you feel that she was neglected in the same way that I feel in the Fantastic Four, the Invisible Woman was, where it's like, especially guy kids were like, yeah, Sue, whatever, invisible, that's great. And then it's like, no. If in the right hands, this is the most powerful member of the FF. Mm-hmm. And certainly in the case of Jean Grey, Marvel Girl, it's like, okay. And it's like, no, all of a sudden, man, like, you really proved how dangerous she could be. I love that romantic scene during the Dark Phoenix saga when she and Scott are involved, and she's like, take off the visor. And he's like, are you nuts? No. And then all of a sudden he realized, my God, she is holding back what I need technology to do just with her mind. And it's like, mm-hmm. This is scary.
Well, I think part of it is, and you kind of alluded to it parenthetically, Sue is not the Invisible Woman. She was the Invisible Girl.
Yep.
Jean was Marvel Girl.
Yep.
Everybody was a girl.
Yeah.
No, and there was one girl on each team, because the guys were what mattered.
Yep.
The one person who was immune to that was Wonder Woman.
Indeed.
And quick as a snap, they came up with Wonder Girl. But look at the FF. You've got Johnny catches fire. Reed stretches to an infinite amounts. Ben is a giant creature of rock. And what happens to Sue? She vanishes.
Yeah.
If that isn't a metaphor. And the thing with Jean, is she shows up and she's always the timid one.
Yeah.
Scott is this, Hank is this. The guys have fun, and Jean's always like the girl.
Yeah.
And it's, as I worked through, as I started my run in 2000, I began playing with that. The idea that Jean was actually Charlie's first recruit. He was the means by which she was his cerebro, in a way. They combine their telepathy and reach out and be aware of other mutants.
Totally.
And she was the part of the core on which this team was built. And the other half of it is that she and Phoenix, this is where John Byrne and I came to our team up came to an end, because it ended up being grounded around our perceptions of who Jean was and where we would go with her. Even to the extent where when he was doing the FF issues where they recovered Jean, they brought her back, and Jean's explaining who she is to Sue and the team, or they're seeing her memories. John's original vision of it was Phoenix as a malevolent force, a villain. And that fortunately wasn't what ended up seeing print, but we had fundamentally different views of what was going on here. And for me, it was, the paradigm of this was, Phoenix is not an adversary. Phoenix is, as I keep telling kids as I used to tell kids at conventions, Phoenix is one step below God, the Almighty. Phoenix is the power source that creates reality. And there you go.
Yeah.
But it's bonds with a certain element in each reality. And in ours, it was Jean. And she has always been Jean, and she will always be Jean. She would drift in and out of the family over the centuries, but there's only one. And the problem was that Jean, out of necessity, tapped into that way earlier in her evolution than she should have. And that led to tragic consequences.
Yeah. That's great, man. Absolutely. So we got, in this collection, we've got the Dark Phoenix Saga, Days of Future Past, Wolverine, the limited series, a great issue of Uncanny 268 with Wolverine, Cap, and Black Widow. And then
I always felt that would make a brilliant film.
I agree. It's really one of my favorite stories. Absolutely, man.
Hugh Jackman wouldn't even have to get into super shape anymore, because he could just wear normal clothes.
Sure. That's true. That's absolutely true.
I figured it was the ideal cast, because you have Chris Evans as Cap, you have Scarlett Johansson as the Widow, you have Hugh Jackman as Logan, and Awkwafina as Jubilee.
That's terrific. Sure.
And they could, and since most of it's set in the past, though for movie terms we'd have to say it would be Scarlett's Black Widow's grandmother, or maybe even great-grandmother. Doesn't matter. It's still cool.
Sure.
And it's a one-part story, so you can get in, say your piece, and get out, and have the best last line ever, where Cap is talking to Wolverine. I liked working with you. Maybe we should keep this going. And Logan says, "Thanks, Cap. I don't need a sidekick." And Cap's like, I didn't mean that. But that was me going back to the beginning with Stan and saying, see, we can do this in one issue. We don't, yes, it flows in from one and flows out to another, but the story is here. And to me, it's everybody having a good time. Logan in 1940 having a good time. Logan in 1990 having a great time.
Tell me about, again, these different bonus things beyond the comics that are in there. It says that you've got a hard. Let me see here. Includes one of 4 handwritten iconic quotes from his X-Men stories. So are you signing these and then also including like a quote from one of your stories?
Well, I not only signed them, I hand lettered them. It's like we've sort of figured out 4 iconic quotes, and then I sat down with paper in a very steady hand and just lettered out the lines, and then I signed them.
That's awesome.
So if you want all 4 of them, you'll have to buy 4 complete volumes.
Wow. Yeah. Well, and
They were
also,
nothing if not. And then there are these some marvelous um, pieces of art. I have
yes.
to say, Joe Quesada's was like, holy cow, that's gorgeous. Because that's Wolverine and the Demon Bear.
Yep.
You know, I
And
guess in his sense, coming to rescue Danny. But and then some other elements that I didn't even know about. So hell, I want one of these books.
I've got the list of all the different lithos that are included. You said
Mm-hmm.
Joe Quesada. You got Phil Noto with a Dark Phoenix Saga
Mm-hmm.
homage, an Inferno homage from Philip Tan, an X-Men Claremont collage litho from Salvador, uh,
Mm-hmm.
Storm and Callisto battle from Marcos Martin.
Mm-hmm.
Art Adams does an Asgardian Wars homage, and
that
Olivier Coipel, an exclusive Wolverine #6 Days of Future Past theme variant comic book cover. Um,
was that was really, well, it's Olivier. What do you expect? It's Saga.
he's
What do you expect? I mean, it's just the problem is when I see things like that with artists like that, my first reaction automatically is, hey, we could do a story.
oh sure,
But that's it. I mean, it's all about, again, I look at the 20 pager and I think, that's a really good team, especially the surprise member that everybody is assuming they know from looking at the one from the lithograph or the cover, but maybe not.
the
In
people
the
who
background, yes, I'm being very oblique, but I really don't want to give it away because I
I
mean,
don't want
as
you
you
to.
saw going through there, it is a primal character, and yet there are the seeds of heartbreak in it because this character dares not come out of the armor. Because, I mean, the thing I love most in a very weird way are the nanites. Because for me, having the Sentinels be these giant lumbering creatures, it's very Stan and Jack. It's very 60s.
Totally.
But as when I was working actually in Forever, establishing that there is a future iteration of them that integrates modern technology into the concept of Sentinels. Why can't they be smaller? Why can't we use nanotech? Why can't they be? You want a giant Sentinel? They all rush together and grow up. I mean,
Sure.
I was doing this back in the X-Men with this alien critter that shows up during Dave's and my second run. Before this is where we head towards the evolution of Carol Danvers into binary, and the X-Men having a fatal interaction with the Brood Queen. But as technology evolves, why can't we play with it in the comics themselves? Parenthetical aside, it's sort of like watching Star Trek Discovery and thinking, this series is set before Pike's Enterprise. I've seen the Enterprise, back in the day. Technology didn't look like that.
No, it didn't.
It looks very cool, but you can see that 50 years does have it's like looking and saying, wow, my biplane can really go 100 miles an hour. And then you jump ahead 50 years and it's like, Mach 3, anyone?
Exactly. I'm with you,
It's,
man. I have a feeling that we could have a very agreeable Star Trek Discovery conversation, and I am, yeah,
well, yeah, it's just,
it's not my Star Trek. And
no,
it's a
I think
shame
it's
that they
very
put it in.
cool though.
It looks amazing. It looks amazing, but
It's,
it doesn't match with what we got in the 60s. I always felt Enterprise did a very good job of, you
Well, it was a
know,
prequel.
right, but and it pushed the story along, but it didn't supersede the technology that we got in the 60s, and they found a way to make it work.
Well,
And
the
and,
problem
and
is sorry,
no, continue,
the
because
Star Trek technology of the '60s is now the reality of the teams.
100%.
So we have to invent even better technology. But no, I mean, I kind of like the idea that they've now gone 100 years, 1,000 years in the future
A thousand years,
from
yeah.
their future.
Yeah.
So everything's up the spout. They've done a Doctor Who. They pulled a Doctor Who and just gone way down the line, which is fine. But the trick is characters you fall in love with, and then you let the story take care of itself. I mean, I think the thing I like most about Discovery is not the original captain, but the 7-foot tall guy.
Oh yes, Saru, Doug
Saru,
Jones's character.
sorry,
Yeah.
who's brilliant.
Oh, he's great in everything, man. I agree.
And I kind of like. Sorry, I don't watch it enough to remember anything anymore.
That's
What's
okay.
her face?
Oh, Burnham, Michael Burnham.
Burnham.
Okay.
And I totally wish they'd kept her captain around. That they hadn't killed her off in the second episode.
Giorgio, yeah, Michelle Yeoh's original
Michelle
character.
Yeoh. Michelle Yeoh can do anything.
She's amazing.
I mean, if I were doing X-Men, I'd make her Charlie, and the hell with the wheelchair.
Fun.
Just have her run out and karate everybody.
And man, she's 58 and still is physical and looks incredibly credible in her fight scenes. I mean, again, going back to Crouching Tiger, it's like, my God, this woman is amazing.
Yeah, but then you look at Crazy Rich Asians and you realize,
yes,
she doesn't need to punch anybody.
No, great acting.
I mean, just playing a hand on hand of checkers, Chinese chess. It's like, whoa. But that's it.
Yeah,
you need, I mean, I think the most remarkable thing about both Lauren's X-Men and Kevin's Avengers is the extraordinary casting.
Agreed.
I mean, you just run up and down the list. Though I have to say, from my perspective, looking at Endgame, if it were me, my suggestion would have been, no, God, perfect. Tony's daughter is the new Iron Man.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this goes back to there was a Chris Evans film about 3 years ago where he's the uncle and his niece is this mathematics genius.
Okay.
It was just playing off of that. But in this case, so you have this 6-year-old girl who is as brilliant as her father, who can, she can run the world technologically, but what she really wants to do is follow in her dad's footsteps and become Iron Man.
Wow.
But that's the beauty. In the armor, nobody knows she's a kid.
Sure.
So and what the hell, it can even sound like Robert Downey. But yeah. Everyone figures it's a guy, but you never see him without the armor. And then she takes it off and goes to school and does whatever she does as a kid growing up. And then I figured, what the hell, if I'm in for a penny, in for a pound, the AI of the suit is Tony.
Sure.
Because you can hire Robert Downey for like a couple of days of CGI and dialogue. But the punchline, the ultimate punchline is it's not an AI. Tony put himself into the machine, he split himself.
Sure.
So that he would have his daughter's back for the rest of her life, and she would never be without her dad.
That sounds great.
And, well, it's just me being, if I'm going to do melodrama, I'm going to do melodrama. But again, you stitch all the pieces together. You find a way. It's like going back. I'm sorry, I'm babbling way out off the line. But my ending for Days of Future Past, the movie, would have been, you know, Logan comes over and says, Gene, and Famke looks at him, oh, and look at, oh, Scott, ha ha ha. And so you think status quo, and then have uh, Gene say, and this is our daughter Rachel, and out steps Sophie Turner, and it's like, huh. And then you go through the credits, and then you have the after credit, holy cow, which is Gene waking up in the middle of the night, worst nightmare, Phoenix effects are swirling all around her, and it's like, what the fuck? And leads her down the hall, and she sees Rachel in bed having a nightmare. And the nightmare culminates with the Phoenix just embracing her to protect her. So then you move ahead to Apocalypse, set in the present day, and you do the whole thing. And at the end, the punchline is he's not here to capture Charlie. Because in my fantasy, physical Charlie is Patrick Stewart. Psychological Charlie is Ian McAvoy.
Sure.
So you get the best of both worlds.
Sure.
So you have him trying to protect the students, and Apocalypse crushes him. So that sets up the Charlie of Logan. But what it comes down to is he wants Jean. So Jean ends up about to be absorbed, and Rachel comes to the rescue. But in the process of manifesting the Phoenix and doing all that, Energy Bolt rips out of her, zooms across the galaxy, and we end Phoenix Part 1 with the whole Shi'ar. She eats the planet, destroys the starship. Delandra wakes up and it's like, holy shit. And then the second film is Dark Phoenix. And you could tie it in, once again, to Logan, the Westchester incident, where 12 X-Men died, but which 12?
Sure.
And, you know, but to me, it's like finding a way to stitch all this together. And if you're going to do it in films, do in films what you do in comics, which is keep the audience on the edge of their seat. For me, the 20-pager in the omnibus works best if you get to the end and the reader's reaction is, what happens next? Where's the next issue? Well, because that, for comics, is the point.
Absolutely.
We're a tease. We're a perpetual, unending tease.
Yep.
We want you to come back next issue. Sorry about that.
Not a problem,
Hopefully
buddy.
Beth will get it.
It's all good.
Oh, it's a robocall. But it's like Gunsmoke. 20 years watching Mr. Dillon mature. But the audience is there.
Yes.
James Bond from Connery to McAvoy. Not McAvoy, sorry. Daniel Craig. And the way the world's going now, Daniel Craig's last movie may be the last movie, but from the trailers, it looks great.
I agree with you. Absolutely.
But that's what it's supposed to be.
Indeed.
That's what we're supposed to be. It's not, to me, it's never teasing the audience with, well, go to this issue to find out what happens next. No, it's come back to us. Make the characters so irresistible to the audience. It's a love affair. And on one level, for me, going to conventions back in the day and having people come up and tell me how much the death of Phoenix means to them, how much the Wolverine series means to them. And many of them were in tears. You killed Jean. You took this person out of my life. And part of me is going, oh shit, I'm really, really sorry. And the other part of me is going, yes.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's all about. Keeping the readers on the edge of their seat and queuing up at the door of the comic shop next month to see what happens next. If
You're right, man. That's the trick. No, 100%, man. I I
And make
get
it
it.
fun.
Well, yeah, make it fun, but also, like you said, no, give us the anticipation of I got to read next month. I got to come back next month and see what happens next. 100%. Well, these are great stories, man, and I'm really excited to see your notes on the arts. Honestly, that's great. A lot of us are process junkies as well as comic readers, and it's going to be a lot of fun. As much as we can get inside your head in terms of what you were thinking as you were writing and plotting this stuff with your collaborators and stuff. I think it's very exciting to see those notes. That's
Well,
what
it
I love
depends on the
about.
collaborator.
Well, and I can, I can appreciate that, but I also think this is what I loved about the artist editions that IDW was putting out, and then we get to see the notes and stuff like that. That's great, man. People will go to marvelmade.net to order the book, and they're only 2/3 of the way there. It's got to hit at least 1,200
Oh, geez. Come
sales.
on, readers. That's not
Exactly, man.
fair.
And they got to do it by December 4th. So clock is running, kids. Got to pick this thing up, man. The Marvel made Paragon collection, and again featuring the incredible stories of Chris Claremont. This was a pleasure, Chris. Honestly, I really appreciate your time, and would love to talk to you again at a future date.
The pleasure is mine.
Well, you're
The
very
problem
kind.
is I keep talking and talking and talking. Too many words. Sorry
No, man,
about
I'm the straight man. People come for the funny. I'm Abbott in this equation. You're Lou Costello. We need we came for the jokes.
that. Oh,
So this is
God.
great. And truly, no, man. Hey, I'm here every week. It's special when people like you come on and we get to see what's rattling inside your head. So seriously, it's really been
Thank you. That's
fun.
very kind.
It's my pleasure, absolutely, man. And again, you're welcome to come back. I hope you'll come back for a future word balloon. But we'll direct people
Me
to
too.
thank you and marvelmade.net, everybody, to order this incredible Marvel Made Paragon collection of Chris Claremont's work. Lots of great stuff. These lithos from these incredible artists, and a prequel story to Days of Future Past with Salvador LaRocca, also worth the price of admission.
And some of the most unexpected characters of all.
Sounds good. Absolutely. Chris, thank you very much for your time today, and have a good Thanksgiving. Have a nice
And
holiday.
you. This year, please God,